It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
That fart is exactly how I feel. I am sick as a mofo, but we're going to have some fun nonetheless. It is Sunday night, March 16th. Happy 316 day, everybody. Does WWE still celebrate that 316 day? They should. And coming up 420 and coming up 327. My birthday. Thursday night it happens on. That's funny because the history show is the only show that we do on Thursday, so I'll probably get that up a day early. Probably spend the evening with my wife. Maybe I'll get a nice birthday gift. Seems to come only once a year. Anyway, what's up, everybody? I'm trying to get myself in a better mood. Mighty just became a member of the Donzilla Army and the Castle Comrades. So that puts a smile on my face. By the way, big shout out to all these wonderful people that are part of our channel member family here on YouTube. Big shout out to our Patreon family. Big shout out to everybody who supports what Kevin and I do. I want to welcome you to this latest edition of The Sit Down. It's Sunday night, obviously. We call this the lazy show. Whatever our live, I hate to use audience because it sounds so formal. Or informal. There's no connection there. Anybody, our live friends who are hanging out tonight, they pretty much dictate what we talk about. And anybody that tunes in on a weekly basis knows that we have some great conversations. I will tell everybody this, and I wasn't planning on talking about this yet because I wanted to see the actual court documents, but someone had DM'd me about 10 minutes before we went live and said, DT, believe it or not, Ryan Nemeth did in fact file this in court. Actually did file a lawsuit against CM Punk and Tony Khan and AEW. I got to be careful because somebody like this, probably is sue happy. But man, what a sissy pussy thing to do. And again, I wonder, that sounds like an old 50s song. Who wrote the Book of Love? Yeah, I'm old. I never liked 50s music, by the way, other than Frank Sinatra and a few Goodfellas themes. But I'll say this. I wonder if Nick Nemeth, as part of his deal with TNA, hey, you got to help my brother out a little bit too. Because Ryan Nemeth was put in a very high position on the TNA pay-per-view Friday night. And honestly, if I'm somebody in wrestling, I would not do business with this guy. I'd be afraid. If I misuse the person or if I don't make him over the top happy, that I might be accused of something, might be dragged into a stupid court case. If I'm CM Punk, I don't even answer that fucking summons. I don't even answer it. Fuck you. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because Tony Khan taking a page from the WWE handbook. And listen, I do not, when people are like, oh, Tony Khan is just like Vince McMahon. No, he's not. He's just like any other businessman out there. Remove Mick and replace it with business. That's what Tony Khan is. And listen, I definitely give my share of criticizing Tony Khan. And trust me, if you saw the thumbnail for tonight, Conning Khan. Oh, we got a funny story to tell tonight. And I always put the baby nipple, if you notice. That's my little trademark. Either the shirt says Shad Khan's kid on it, or if we're forced to put a suit, we'll put always a little pacifier in his mouth. But Tony Khan taking a page from a lot of the WWE lawsuits like this, trying to get it moved to arbitration. And this will be moved to arbitration. I can't even believe I'm saying that. This should be thrown out of court, period. All Tony Khan's got to do is say, look what he's doing in TNA. How did we blackball him in wrestling? But I think the reason why Tony Khan is moving that to arbitration is because he wants to be done with this as quickly as possible. It's just, let's get this shit out of here as quickly as possible. Get this motherfucker off of our backs. I think that's why he's going that route. If I'm everybody in court, I make that lawyer representing Ryan Nemeth work his ass off. And when it gets to that stage, Ryan Nemeth will get next to nothing. The only problem with that is that Tony Khan is going to have to pay his lawyers to really go through the process of a lawsuit that shouldn't have been filed. I think it's ridiculous. A child wrote that. I tell you, it's funny? If Ryan Nemeth gets money you remember when we read the lawsuit? If that guy actually gets money based on something that looked like it was written by Ringside News, anybody could sue anybody in court. I mean, that was written by a fifth grader. It was just so horrendous, and it's filled with misinformation. But once again, maybe we look at it like Ryan Nemeth is conning Khan. That should be our new phrase, conning Khan. Conning Khan. Oh, we'll talk about this little story later on. This is funny. I gave a little preview on the news update last night, but I did a little bit more research since then, and it is kind of funny. So how's everybody doing tonight? Before we go any further and start getting into your questions and discussions, a quick show programming note. As we talked about earlier this week, the March 17th, the March 2024, the March 17th, the March 24th, and the March 31st episodes of Raw are streaming live at a special start time. March 17th, Raw airs on Netflix live at 3 p.m. Eastern. Raw, March 24th, airs live at 4 p.m. Eastern. And Raw on March 31st airs live on 3 p.m. Eastern, and that's because WWE's overseas. For anybody out there that thinks that Netflix is going to stream it live at 8 p.m., go right ahead and do that. Netflix is not a cable TV network. It is a streaming platform. It is airing live. Treat it like a premium live event. Treat it like when WWE is in Saudi Arabia or in Greece or in Belgium, wherever it is. That's how you got to treat it. Treat it like a premium live event. It is going to stream live when it airs live overseas, and then you could watch it anytime afterwards. But anybody that's going to wait until 8 p.m. thinking that the wrestling world is all going to watch it at 8 p.m., you're going to be in for little roots of awakening. But check this out. Kev and I will be live Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on our Discord channel, which is actually pretty cool because we'll do the show at 8 o'clock. We'll be done before 10, and then we actually could get a normal night's sleep for a change. We'll see how this goes, and if this goes well, then next week and the week after, we'll probably follow suit and keep it at 8 p.m. So DTKC Discord, if you want to catch us live, and no word yet on the next special episode that we will do live on YouTube. I have to talk to Kev about that a little bit. So, big shout out to everybody. Much love as always. I see a couple of people sent a couple of questions in already, but Guardian of Chaos, my thoughts on Mercedes Moné allegedly having JD taken off commentary for House of Glory during her match. I don't buy it. You know why I don't buy it? Because sometimes you got to be a hoe before you're a pimp. And what I mean by that is that and listen, I'm not saying this, JD is a friend of mine. And yes, I support my friends. But one thing that I have always done is if I have to call out one of my friends and I disagree with them, I will do it. I am not going to sugarcoat something. And JD is truly, a good guy. When I had JD on a couple of years ago for that Forbidden Podcast Door episode that we did, we didn't prepare much beforehand. But one thing that I wanted to do, and JD was aware of this, is I wanted to have a casual conversation with him. Let him let his guard down a little bit. Show that, he is not a bad guy. This is not who's the guy that does InfoWars? This is not somebody who should be blackballed and banished. If you don't like him, that's fine. But there's a lot of shady people in wrestling that wrestlers work for anyway. Alex Jones. It's not Alex Jones. All right. He will speak his mind. He means what he says, and he says what he means. If it rubs people the wrong way, oh, fucking well. Oh, well. The guy is, he criticizes wrestling. And let me say this. If Mercedes Moné was that triggered because JD has criticized a lot of her first year in AEW, if she's that triggered that she did not want him on commentary, I know it's easier said than done, but if I'm House of Glory, I don't care if it's your world champion or if it's your fucking janitor. You stand by your employees. And if one of the things that she demanded was, I do not want JD from New York commentating my match, you know what I would have said with her? Bye-bye. We don't need you. We don't need you. It's not, I just think that is disrespectful. Could it be a storyline? Sure, why not? Why not? House of Glory is an indie fed. Indie companies have storylines. Storylines involve commentators. I did that 17 years ago. If anybody, I'm not going to give a refresher, but I'll just say it like this. When I started my hotline in 1997, and it quickly became the number one wrestling hotline in the nation, in 2000, ECW reached out to me. And one person in particular who I absolutely still, I hope he is doing well. And he was one of the most coolest people that I ever met in wrestling, Lou D'Angeli, Lou E. Dangerously. He contacted me and he's like, listen, he says, I know about your hotline and everybody, talks about it. We would love for you to be involved in ECW, maybe push some tickets, promote the shows. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And, in return, they just opened the red carpet and going to sit ringside front row for pay-per-views and meeting everybody behind. A lot of you know the story. There's a lot more to it. But the thing is that, when I started doing that, I got a lot of hate. This is the year 2000. This is 25 years ago. 25 years ago. So I got a lot of hate. And then when ECW shut down and XPW was looking to come to the Northeast, they reached out and said, look, your hotline is tremendous. We want you to do all the bus trips for XPW. And half of the people you see in the ECW arena were for my bus trips. We sold out 3-4 buses at a time. I take credit for this. You remember when Mike Johnson with Ring of Honor many, many years ago started doing this thing that, Ring of Honor, you'll get a guest wrestler on the bus that'll do a Q&A and take pictures. That was my idea. I did that in XPW as one of the selling points. Daphne, Vic Grimes, a bunch of others, Chris Candido, Tammy, Chris, God rest his soul, Daphne, God rest her soul. They came on the bus. That was one of my selling things. And people that went on the bus trip knew that they were going to get to meet everybody. In fact, one time, props to XPW, one time, and anybody remembers Joey 924 and Black Moses that I used to do the shows with. They were my guests in Philly. And they did a Q&A inside the ring with a whole bunch of ECW/XPW wrestlers, and everybody on my bus trip were a part of it. No one else. So where am I going with this? The more I got involved, the more hate I started getting online. And then when I started working for Mass Maniac, it was Lowlife Louie that said to me, Lowlife Louie Ramos, love him to death. He said to me, he goes, man, you get a lot of shit online. I said, yeah, I know. He's like, why don't we turn this into a little story? Everybody thinks you're a money mark. Everybody thinks that you provide, candy, just like wild stuff. People claim that, I stole my grandmother's drugs when she was alive. She's been dead since 1991. People were really, really going off on me online. It's like, let's turn it into a storyline. So that's how I started doing things on TV. I was a money mark. That's what people labeled me. I was a money mark. And the rest is history. So indie promotions doing storylines with people that work for them is everyday business. The only difference now is with the internet being as powerful as it is, and now streaming every indie show's pay-per-views, you get a lot of play. My God, I wish 20 years ago that we'd be able to stream, indie wrestling events online for $5, $10 a pop, stream it live. It would have been fucking amazing. But the technology was not there at that time. Listen, everybody, it's like, oh, he made fun of Alexa Bliss. None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. One of the things that I regret, and I'm sorry for bringing this up again, but once in a while, someone will say to me, DT, what's the worst thing that you regret the most as far as doing your shows or the hotline? And this is always number one on my list. All right. And I'm not proud of it, but I will tell a story. And if you ask this person will tell you it's 1,000% true. What I'm about to say now is 1,000% true. Back in the early days of the Minority Report and the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show, if you think JD is a jerk, I should have been crucified on the cross for the things that I said. I was trying to be funny, but I was trying to be stupid funny, like a little over the top, and my mouth would get me in trouble. So Jim Ross, a lot of you know this story already. Jim Ross had Bell's palsy, and you saw on TV, he couldn't talk. And if you remember, wasn't Mark Madden? Who was the one that made fun of his Bell's palsy? Who did Oklahoma? Was that Mark Madden? No, that's not Mark Madden. Who did Oklahoma? The other guy, his partner. Who's the one that did Oklahoma in WCW? Ed Ferrara. Thank you. Ed Ferrara made fun of his Bell's palsy. So did I. One time on my hotline, anybody remember the story of Joey Buttafuoco, Mary Jo Buttafuoco, Amy Fisher? For those that don't know that story, and I went to the Bayshore Hotel. We tried to get the room that he used to sleep with Amy Fisher in. Me and my friends were going to hang out, but they said, no. It was taken at the time. Joey Buttafuoco used to own a mechanic shop in Long Island, not too far from where I live, about a half hour away, 40 minutes away. And Joey Buttafuoco started sleeping with, I think she was 16 or 17 at the time. Her name was Amy Fisher. And it became an obsession. And he convinced Amy Fisher that he was going to leave his wife, Mary Jo, and live with her. And it got to the point that Amy Fisher got so obsessed with Joey Buttafuoco, she showed up at the Buttafuoco house with the pistola. And when Mary Jo answered the door, she let it go. Boom, boom, boom. See, I got to say it like that. Otherwise, YouTube gets a little annoyed. I'm learning, guys. I'm learning. It took a couple of years, but I'm learning. And because of it, Mary Jo had partial paralysis of her face. It's a fucked up story. Amy Fisher went to jail. I think Joey Buttafuoco went to jail. But it became legendary. But in fact, Joey Buttafuoco, I think, fought Joni Lara in a celebrity boxing match many, many years ago. But anyway, my point is, about 20 years ago, maybe a little less than that, Mary Jo Buttafuoco was in the news. Maybe she was divorcing Joey. I don't know what. But at the time, Jim Ross had gotten Bell's palsy. And I was on my show, and Mary Jo came up in the conversation. I said, you know what? I know the perfect person who we could hook her up with. Jim Ross. He said they'd be perfect together. This one can't talk out of the left side of her mouth. This one can't talk out of the right side of the mouth. Could you imagine that conversation? It looked like a goldfish, And Jim Ross found out. Jim Ross was doing his Ross report at the time. And Jim Ross, I'll never forget it. And I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud. I'm just telling you this story so you understand people do learn from their mistakes and people do grow up. Jim Ross on his Ross report finished up and talked about that. And he reached out to me. And I think his father either had just passed away or his father had some real bad health crisis. And Jim Ross was so stressed out about it, that's what triggered the Bell's palsy. I felt fucking awful. I felt awful. Don Tony, Anthony the Funker, no, that's not funny. And I reached out back and I was sincerely apologetic. And me, out of my stupidness, how do I make it up for Jim Ross? Number one, don't go there anymore. Number two, learn from your stupid comments, which is me. And number three, buy as much barbecue sauce as you possibly can. I think to this day, I'm probably JR's biggest customer ever. I swear on God, I will never do another show again if I don't provide proof next week. In my office, I have a plastic bin, and inside that plastic bin, there's got to be about 10 bottles of expired barbecue sauce and ketchup that I bought probably 10 years ago. I was buying so much barbecue sauce and ketchup and giving it away on the shows and using it. The Chipotle ketchup was the best, but I thought I owed it to him, give him a little business back, but I felt awful at the time. It was a lot of ha-has. Everybody on the show was laughing. I mean, Kev was like, that's fucked up. And Joey 924, he talks on both sides of his mouth. He's like, ha, 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 that's fucked up. Ha, 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 that's fucked up. Ha, ha, ha. Kev was not happy about it. I felt awful after. And I vowed to not go there personally, especially about looks. And who am I to talk? I look like a human blowfish. So I regret that. That is the worst thing that I have ever said or done on my hotline shows, anything. And I had a rude awakening. There are boundaries. And, what I think JD has realized after all these years is that there's a lot of very, very fragile people out there, wrestlers included. And the thing is that sometimes you have to bite your tongue for the simple fact that, there's a lot of people out there that can't handle a joke, good or bad taste, can't handle criticism. I'm not saying Alexa Bliss is that. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that you learn from it. JD, I don't think in any way, shape, or form ever intended to hurt her the way he did. And he learned from it. But the idea of bringing that up years later, I think is just as bad. So I don't know the details. About Mercedes Moné and JD, but I will tell you this. I don't know who runs it. Amazing Red runs it, who used to be a big supporter of the Blackheart Sports Entertainment Hotline. Still got the promos. Big fan. Love that intro. Got to share it one day. People get a kick out of it. Because he's plugging a hotline and halfway through he's like, wait a minute. I know you guys. No, but seriously, if I'm House of Glory, if she truly made that demand, I would say bye-bye. No, thank you. That's what I would have done. JD is not a bad person. JD definitely rubs people the wrong way. But, it is what it is. That's his style. And, if you don't like it, then don't pay attention. It's just like what I say about Dave Meltzer, and it's just what I say about Wade Keller or anybody else out there. If you don't like someone's style, don't wish their demise. Just don't pay attention. That's how I look at it. But I will tell you sincerely, if I do, and I mean this wholeheartedly, if I thought JD was truly an asshole, all right, I would not waste my time. I would just ignore him. I would just ignore him just like 95% of the other podcasts out there. But he truly is not a bad guy, all right? He has a style about him that a lot of people love. And one thing is, he is brutally fucking honest. And, I kind of respect the brutal honesty, because it does take a lot of balls to say some of the things you want to say. It's not easy. I mean, Look at it like this. Anybody remember my hotline days? It wasn't just Captain Lenny who tried to sue me back in the day. People would threaten to sue me for some of the things I would say. What the fuck are you talking about? So yeah, I think it's a little bit over the top. And honestly, something tells me it's probably storyline than anything else. I don't know. I just can't listen. Mercedes Moné, it's now 1 year she's been in AEW. And I got to be honest with you. If you look at the past 12 months for AEW standards, I think Mercedes Moné, I think AEW's gotten their money's worth. I really mean that. Am I interested in seeing what she's doing? No, not really. But I think truly AEW definitely got their money's worth for the product they put out. I was like, wow, it's been a year already? You look back, she's been in the news and discussion a lot. Doesn't mean that she's on WWE level anymore, but she has definitely changed the presentation of that women's division. Whether good or bad, that's up to you. But I just can't picture her being that soft. I just can't. I can't. And listen, what's flashing through my mind? Somebody who's on the AEW roster, who joked many, many years ago what they would love to have done to Sasha Banks. I would think that is 1,000 times worse than anything that JD has ever said, even if it was just a joke. So I just don't picture her being that soft. I don't. So. All right. Stone Mexican guy says, Don Tony, if can dish it, but he can't take it. He was crying when the AEW women were clowning him. He was crying and complaining about his mental health. Stone Mexican guy, I love you. You put a lot of good feedback in the chat, and I'm not criticizing you, but you just proved my point. How come other people's mental health matters, but JD's doesn't? I mean, because he is this, he changes his personality and amps it up and does what he does. Like I used to love Martin Downey Jr. I used to be a huge fucking fan of Martin Downey Jr. Oh my God. I understand what a fake he ended up becoming. But when Martin Downey Jr., when the cameras were not rolling, you think he was hanging out with his wife and she's like, honey, throw out the garbage. Listen, I'm reading a book right now. I'm having a cigarette. Honey, could you just let out the garbage? It smells like shit. Hey, zip it. Zip it. Smack that shit. No, he didn't do any of that. JD's mental health matters too. And just because you think that this persona, this character that he does on his shows is tough as nails, solid, robotic, over the top, doesn't mean that he can't hurt too. That was why I had him on my podcast. That's why I had him on as a guest, to show that, okay, maybe he does rub some people the wrong way. But when it comes down to it, he is a human being just like anybody else. You can't care about the mental health. See, was my point I was saying about Jim Ross earlier. How I wanted to become a better person is care more about the mental health, not take people for granted simply because I don't like them. And that's the thing also. You don't have to like someone, but if someone is truly bringing up mental health, you can't act like they're not telling the truth. Some people will be lying. Some people will be lying. Some people will take the mental health card, so you'll be like, fuck. This motherfucker threw that mental health card out there. Now I don't know if they're honest or not. And you can't take that chance. You can't take that chance, guys. If someone is out there and you don't like them and they're having a crisis and they're crying mental health, no matter how much you think they're full of shit, you push their buttons anyway, and then something happens, because that's happened to some people in wrestling. Certain female not too long ago, overseas, was criticized, and mental health became a major issue, and people didn't give a shit, and they thought it was just an act and this and that, and then the person ended up taking their life. So you can't just turn around and write off somebody's mental health because you don't like them. It's the world we live in, guys. Unfortunately, and I've been saying this for 2 decades, And a lot of people are sick of it. I haven't said it in about 10 years. But when I bring it up now, people will be like, oh, yeah, I remember when you used to annoy us. How many times back in the day I used to say, how many people online created a fake profile, a fake life about themselves? And for 5, 10, 20 years on social media, they've been living that fake life because they presented a persona about them, superhero, good person, this, whatever it is, ladies, man, whatever it is. And then for 5, 10, 20 years, they've had to maintain that fake persona because this is how they wanted to be known on social media. I know a lot of people are like that. I know a lot of people are full of shit about their lives. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in. But listen, there's been times in the past that I wanted to just out some people. I wanted to out some people so freaking bad. I'm like, oh my God, I got news for you. Somebody sent me $100 super chat a little while ago. I saw it, and it's about Daphne. There's something that I could put out there. And if I put it out there, it will totally rock the wrestling world for a certain former pro wrestler. And and this has to do with the super chat because I have to give this person his money's worth. Not at the expense of Daphne, though. I will never, ever do that. But I'll say this. There are people that I know things that I would love to fucking out. And the reason why I don't is I think back to Perry Saturn. I think back to Kamala. I think back to, other scenarios. And, I ended up playing detective and found out a lot of things that were totally contradicting what was being claimed online. And I was like, wow, look at this. Look what I uncovered. And I got hate because of it. And it's like, you know what? I don't want to be that guy to reveal something. Especially for two people that I cared tremendously for. One is Chris Candido and one is Daphne. I became good friends with them, much closer with Daphne than Chris Candido, obviously. But there's stories with Tammy that Chris Candido's brother Johnny knows. And he knows that I know. And he knows that I've seen things. And again, I'm not saying this to try to prop myself up. You don't believe me? I'm not like Hulk Hogan. I don't wait for somebody to die and then say, brother, we just talked yesterday, brother. He was going to christen my nephew, brother. We were going to go out and double date, brother. I don't do that. Johnny Candido wanted me to be in the Chris Candido documentary because of some fun stories that I could tell about him. But there's also a lot of dark things that not that he did, but that Tammy did. And I told John, I said, I can't do it. And he said, why not? I said, number one, nobody gives a shit about me being on that. I'm not a wrestler. I'm not a recognizable name. People would be like, who's this guy? And number two, I didn't want Chris Candido looking bad, for just sitting back and allowing some of the behavior that Tammy did. That's probably the best way I could put it without saying it. And the thing is that, out of respect for him and for Johnny and for his family, I don't talk about it. And the thing is, there's been other people that I could throw something out there and people be like, holy fucking shit. And I don't, because I'm not going to be that guy. And plus, speaking of this, I'll throw this out there. This came in a few minutes before we went live, and this is not easy for me to do spur of the moment, but I'll use this as an example. Tommy D sent in 100 spot earlier. Tommy says, and I quote, dropping a C, whatever that means, dropping a C for my favorite podcaster. Serious question about Daphne. I know you were real close with her, and you were witness to a lot of her bad times. If Vice reached out to me to discuss it, would I do it? And please share something you think that they should cover. I got to look on my desk. I'll look in a few minutes. But here's the thing. My desk, if I could show you my desk right now, it has not been touched for years, 2-3 years. I put stuff on. Usually the only things that are on my desk are notes that I'll use on a show. Or if I bring up something, you see, like a couple of months ago, I brought up this WCW poster from 2000. It's sitting on my speaker. We were joking about this John Laurinaitis signed photo. It sits on my speaker. Things that I've showed you in the past, I just put it on my desk. The Goldberg gum still sitting on my desk. The bullshit doesn't work anymore.
That was bullshit.
You know, we used to have the bullshit alarm. I even have candy bar wrappers sitting on my desk. My desk is a mess. I just never took anything off it. There's a ton of Daphne stuff on my desk from the night that shit happened. And I've never put anything away. Look, I'm looking at this right now. When Andy Kaufman got put into the WWE Hall of Fame, I showed everybody this box set that I have that is fucking tremendous. And it's still sitting on my desk. Look, even got AEW trading cards. When we opened the live boxing that time, they've been sitting on my desk. So, but here's the thing, okay? When it comes to Daphne, I thought about this the other day, and I'm not going to try to stir up stuff, but I did get a couple of emails in the last 24 hours, and it was based on something that I said yesterday. Yesterday, when I gave everybody the synopsis, the episode list for Dark Side of the Ring Season 6, Daphne's on there. And, you know, the thing is that I know for a fact that there's going to be things about Daphne that are going to be intentionally left out. And not because, well, not everything could fit in the show, but I'll say this. And trust me, there is 2 stories that I could tell that would, one in particular, and I'm not saying this to be dramatic, it would rock the fucking wrestling world if I ever told it. And there is a certain female out there who is like this with Daphne, and it's not Francine. I don't want anybody harassing her, but I've mentioned this other woman in the past. She knows the story. I was only one of 3 other people that were in a room that I saw something happen. And when I saw it, I swear on a stack of Bibles, after it happened, I'll never forget it. At LaGuardia Airport, go outside the hotel room, and Daphne says to me, please don't ever tell anybody. Please don't ever tell anybody. And, you know, I said, okay, no, I'm not going to say a word about it. And, you know, to this day, I haven't said anything. But I know she has told others about it because I could see on social media posts once in a while. And the thing is that I don't know if they want stories like that out there. But the reason why I'm bringing it up, the reason and it's not because Tommy sent 100, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is because when I read the episode synopsis about Daphne for Vice, this is the one thing that annoyed me more than anything. 2 things. They used her real last name, which obviously they should, but they focused on bipolar. And the thing is that a lot of Daphne's suffering was concussions and was head trauma. Was Daphne a little bipolar? Yeah, I definitely understand why they're saying that, but let me see if I can find it. I know it's on the desk because I showed everybody a couple of months ago. Here it is. Here it is. Before I show you what I'm going to show you, I thought about it the other day, and I was like, okay, now I understand why Vice is not going to bring up certain things. And I'm going to go there, and I'm going to say this, because honestly, I don't think what I'm about to say is controversial. It's a part of life. It's a part of life, but then it hit me. I will be shocked to shit if they talk about a marriage. And the reason why I say that is because Chris Jericho, and I'm not saying this to throw any shade to Chris Jericho or his band, All right. But I'm going to say something. And I know this to be 1000% true. All right. Chris Jericho is involved in Vice. You've seen him do commentary, interview segments, narrate. Chris Jericho's involved with it. There ain't no fucking way are they going to turn around and throw any shade to Chris Jericho's bandmate, Chris Ward. Is that his first name? Chris? This is a Christmas card that Daphne sent me, 20 years ago when she was married to Chris Ward of Fozzy. Okay? They got divorced. And she was devastated. She was devastated that the marriage didn't work. She was old-fashioned. Her family, you get married, you don't get divorced. And Daphne was very devastated. And there were times, and I can't make this up. And trust me, little things like this, I've never been in her house, so I would not be able to see this. But she would sometimes call me on the phone. I don't know if it was her basement or wherever it was where a washing machine is. And she's like, oh, I'm in the laundry room. And I just wanted to call and talk about this and this and that. And she was devastated that her marriage went south. But, they're not going to put Chris Jericho's bandmate in a negative light. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, too. I want to say this to cover my ass also. I don't know anything bad about this guy. I'm not accusing him of any type of abuse or anything like that. What I'm saying is that when that marriage didn't work out, she was devastated about it. If you remember some of the autographs that I gave away for people who donated money to her fund when they were planting trees when she passed, a lot of the autographs said Shannon Ward on it. I handled all of her autograph photos back in the day. I'm the one that actually had the photos printed up, and I would send her blocks of 1,000 photos that she would autograph and give away. I took care of that because a friend of mine owned a printing company. So there's a lot of things. Rich Ward. I kept saying Chris Ward, Rich Ward. Thank you very much, Armand. Rich Ward. Shows you how much I follow Fozzy. Rich Ward. I'm sure they're going to mention that she was married and it didn't work out, but I know that was really, really, really hard on her. And the problem is, and this is why I don't think they're really going to go there, she got played by a couple of guys. She got played. She, was very, very old-fashioned at her core, and she would get involved with the wrong people. And that emotionally hurt her. But if they're going to focus on, she was bipolar, let me tell you something. I was friends with Daphne for 20 years. All right. And trust me, I've been witness and talked to her about a lot of things. And there's some people out there that know 100% I'm not making this shit up. And I don't put it out there to get recognized. I don't write it. I'm not adding in on a synopsis here. You're not going to see her name in the subject area. But what I'm saying is that episode is going to be so incomplete, or they're going to go in a direction that is going to be so one-sided. And I just think, that's wrong. But again, there's a couple of things about her that if it was ever told, the funny thing is, like, if I was able to talk to her right now and I said, should I bring this up? I have a feeling that she would say no. I don't think she would want it brought up. But I'll say this. She was definitely a victim of, I don't want to say abuse, but she was a victim of really being played in relationships. Very much played. I always was under the impression that Daphne needed somebody around her. Always needed somebody around her. Like just that security. And let me tell you something. There's some people out there, from Francine to April Hunter and others, who were absolutely beautiful with her, that she just absolutely loved. And there were people in wrestling that truly, truly cared for her also. There's a shitload of people that really, really cared for her. Daphne is, I understand why it's on Vice. It's definitely Dark Side of the Ring, no question. But there's a lot of things that are not going to be told, and it's going to paint a totally different picture. And that's why I do not believe that I'm going to be watching it. I'm not interested. Let me tell you something. OTS Tribal Queen, she says psychological abuse is really deep. Listen, I could tell. I could tell this. This is not bad. This is rated G. I could tell this one. All right. Without naming names. All right. There was one time. All right. For those going back to XPW days. All right. I actually, because I was friends with Daphne, actually made phone calls, and because someone in XPW wanted her to work, and she couldn't use the Daphne name at the time because I think Jimmy Hart either owned the copyright or something with Jimmy Hart. I remember we talked about it on the hotlines back then, but she used the name Lucy Fur. Instead of Lucifer, Lucy Fur. That was her name. And what happened was, there was one time that, like back when I worked doing behind the scenes stuff for XPW, people used to use my hotel room. Like if everybody's going to smoke weed, oh no, we're not going to stink up our own clothes in our own room. We'll just go to the Blasie's room. That guy's a mark. He's going to just ooh and ah that everybody's hanging out in his room, and he'll let us use the room. And probably at that time they were right. So they would all go to my room and fucking hang out. Nobody would fuck the place up, but people would just chill. And one time I had never forget it, had one room with 2 beds. And I was on one bed just watching TV. And somebody was hanging out on the other bed. And Daphne was there also, just chatting. And next thing I know, they're like watching TV. It's all rated G, watching TV. But I noticed she was like arm in arm with this person. So when she went to the bathroom, I said to him, I said, should I leave the room? She's like, no. We're just hanging out. There's nothing going on. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was saying to myself, okay, that's a little strange. Like, you're like literally like arm in arm, like laying in bed, clothed, no kissing, no nothing, just laying in bed, watching TV also. And it was my room. And I'm like, should I leave for a little while? And he's like, no, we don't do nothing. No, we're just hanging out. And when she came back out, they're just watching TV. And I always felt at that time, okay, there was just something about her that she wanted that security. Like somebody had to be there. Her cats were her life also. That's why when I used to tell a story, Chase and Rance, which is one of the most hated people in wrestling still because of obviously his actions. Look it up if you don't know anything about Chase and Rance. But a lot of people may not remember that Chase and Rance used to have a house in Florida. And it was like a 5-family house. I think one of his family members left it to him or he used it. I don't know how he got the house. But when some people were working for TNA at the time or work in Florida, they would live in his house for months at a time. And at one point, Daphne lived in the same house with Chase and Rance. And she had a cat there. And then I remember there was an incident where the cat ran out in the middle of the street and either got hit by a car or almost got hit by a car. And I remember going on my wrestling hotline and I'm like, this motherfucking incident, because it was something about his doing, like he left the door open or just something stupid. I don't remember this. I don't think the cat got hit by a car because I would remember that, but it was something really stupid. And I said it on the show and she calls me up. She said, can you delete that? She's like, he's doing me a favor, like hanging out, like letting me stay in Florida. I just gotta, and I'm like, all right, no problem. And I deleted it. But, I always felt that she needed some type of security. And let me tell you something, when she started gaining weight and she really started to, get that depression, just everything just started crashing down on her. And, people have always asked me over the years, did I have a crush on her? Did I like her? If I had the opportunity, would I have hooked up with her? Would I? And my honest answer, and I say it to this day, is yes, I absolutely had a crush on Daphne. Yes, I absolutely would have hooked up with her. But when I started becoming friends with her in 2002 and realized, first of all, I ain't her type. I was not her type. And this is leading to something, and then we'll move on. I wasn't her type. You look at some of the people she's involved in, I was not her type. But I realized in 2002 that we became, like nice friendship. Look, I've showed you guys pictures of letters. She's written me 2, 3, 4-page letters. Yeah, I'm not going to show this, but it's got some personal info on there. Sure, the address is no longer good, but my point is, I realized in 2002 I had no shot. So I became good friends with her, but about 5-6 years ago, when she started putting on weight, and we started talking a little bit more. And no, there was never a discussion about hooking up or anything like that. But I noticed that her environment was changing, and the people that she was attracted to, that type of person, was not reciprocal back. And I'm not talking about individual people. I'm talking about how, like, I don't want to sound superficial, but, just picture someone as beautiful as Daphne was, right, before she gained weight. Now imagine she gets approached by some guy that's like 300 pounds, looks a little bit sloppy, and, trying to pick her up in a bar. And she'd be like, ugh, ew, ew, ew. Now the tides were turning, and she had, that vice, no pun intended. Food was her vice. And she started gaining weight. And then she noticed that people were kind of looking at her a little bit different. And the beautiful scream queen that we always knew was turning into a middle-aged, heavy-set woman that had a lot of insecurities, and that wanting enclosure, that security was not there. And the security turned into other vices, food and other things. I'm not going to be the one to bring those up. And unfortunately, that and, just some of her failures, as I said, I don't even want to call it failures, but disappointments. And then you add in everything else, it's a ticking time bomb. So, again, I totally understand why they're doing the episode. But I just, there's some people involved that are definitely not going to go certain places that maybe they should. But yeah, there's one story, like I said, if I ever put it out there, it's wild. It's really fucking wild. But let me say it like this. There's at least 3 or 4 females out there that know the story too. I was one of 2, not including others involved, that saw what went down. And if they ever thought that I should go public and talk about it, they could reach out to me, and then I would. But I don't think that will ever come about, because I'm not gonna. It would totally, I don't want to say ruin someone's life, but that I could see how the wrestling world, how they operate now. And my God, this would turn into a fucking mess. And I don't want to go do the Perry Saturn and the Kamala route and the other stuff like before. It's not my place. And honestly, I will always remember that one conversation: please don't ever tell anybody. I said, no, that's it. But only reason why I'm teasing it here is because there's a lot of other things that led to Daphne's demise. And something tells me this Vice episode is going to paint a picture that is so incomplete that if people think that bipolar was yeah, that's a little bit of a real broad brush to be painting. But I understand why they're covering it. You know what's interesting? If anybody out there that gets like the replay of these, go check out the chat while I'm talking about this. You'd be surprised how many people in the chat who have gone through or are going through similar things. You know, I tell you, this is the one thing I've always, and this kind of maybe intertwines with about JD and Alexa Bliss stuff and things like that. We watch people on television. We watch wrestlers on television, no matter how high they are on a roster or how low they are on a roster. And the one thing that I learned so early on is that, yeah, they're financially better off than we are for the most part. Yes, they are extremely famous and are larger-than-life personas. But at the end of the day, they hurt and they bleed and they cry just like us. And it's something that for a lot of people, that comes with the territory. Oh, you're larger than life. You got to be able to handle criticism. You got to be able to handle this. No, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there who cannot handle it or have a very hard time handling it. And that's something that I learned so early on. And look, the Jim Ross story I told earlier was the one that really, really rocked me. And I regret that to this day. I feel awful. Was not worth the ha-ha from that one night. But when you hear that somebody has a mental health episode, I don't care if they're world champion. I don't care if they're a Hall of Famer. You can't just turn around and say, oh, he's a larger than, or she's a larger than life superstar. They can handle it. They're celebrities. It comes with the territory. That is a really bad take to make. That's why even when, I joke about like Nikki Bella or others, like at the end of the day, I think to myself, I'm like, yeah, I have to show, a certain level of respect and not go too deep with it because, people have feelings. And yeah, I'm a nobody saying it, but still, it's a sign of respect. Some of the people that you see on TV, believe me, I tell you, have a real, and if you hear me a little off, I've been very, very sick the last couple of days. I'm sure you could see, it's not even hot in here and I'm sweating like a pig. Yesterday, my throat was killing me. I was coughing like crazy today, but I definitely wanted to do this episode. So, but sorry if I got a little bit deep with this, but one thing that I love about doing these shows is sometimes I could be Anthony DiBlasi. And no, there's no difference between Don Tony and Anthony DiBlasi. But my point is that, yeah, when we do the shows, I let my guard down. I get a little animated and I go a little over the top and I talk louder and I try to be extra funny and this and that. But, sometimes we can have deep conversations. And that's something that I always fucking loved about shows I do with Kev, shows I do here. We can have serious talk. We don't have to always be like, man, did you see Jade Cargill? How the fuck did she say on SmackDown that, that Naomi was dangerous, this and that? And then you look at the storyline like, oh, Jade, you're such a good friend. He never warned your friend Bianca that, hey, look what I found out. You better stay away. No. Just wait until after they lose the tag titles to do the reveal. Yeah, we could talk about that, but sometimes we can have some deep conversations. So, and if it helps one person out there in some way, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So Miss Me Thinks says he has bipolar disorder and it's never made him want to, end it. or make him really depressed. But toxic people in his life have made him feel like shit. Fake friends and women using you will hurt you. Many, many years ago, people accused me of being bipolar too. When I was early, and that's why, if you remember, I used to throw that word around a lot on the shows. And people would say to me, DT, that's disrespectful to people who truly have it. And when I used to accuse some people of having it, I truly believed that they did. And the reason why I used to say, because people used to say to me, DT, you're fucking bipolar. The way I act, like be nice and things. But I truly don't understand, really what deep, like the telltale signs are. But I'll say this, again, one day I got to share my screen and show you my Twitter. I know it's not a big deal, but I follow a couple of thousand people on Twitter, and I have about 75% of them muted because I don't want to log in, look at my wall, and see negative, complaint, negative, complaint. It's like, I'm just not interested. Like anybody out there that brings you down, they ain't worth the conversation. Even on our Discord channel, the other day, I unfortunately had to block someone. It was so one-sided and so many people were complaining about this person. I had to block them. And I'm sure they understand, and I'm sure they're hearing this or seeing this. But I'll say this, before I did, I was telling everybody in the chat room, look, if you see someone in the chat room and they're really rubbing you the wrong way, just right-click on their name and click block or mute. You'll never see a word from them ever again. And 95% of everybody who was complaining about the person did not do that. That's one thing I will never understand. If someone, it's like that, it's too irresistible. Oh, I got to see what that person's saying about me. So they don't block them. And it's like, no, man, if somebody's really getting under your skin and is not helping you and is just causing you agita, block them, mute them. It's not worth it. Listen, back then, like everybody's like, they talk about Dax Harwood a lot. And they're like, oh, he vanity searches his name. There's people out there in wrestling that, you've seen people who vanity search their names to see what is somebody saying about me. I don't care who it is. What are they saying about me? That's why sometimes when you'll see somebody in wrestling call out somebody on Twitter that has 20 followers, you're like, here's a good one. Carmella. A week ago, when Carmella came out with that podcast appearance on Almost Famous or whatever it is, Barely Famous, and somebody said, oh, I wish Carmella would, they should like end it all or something really, really awful on Twitter. And within an hour, Carmella's responding to this person and retweeting it and saying, this is people like this. And I look and the person's got 22 followers. And I'm like, why are you even giving this person play? Fucking block them, mute them. Why even give it play? And that's because people vanity search because they got to see what anybody's saying about them. But at the end of the day, you're just feeding in. You think that person with 22 followers cares that they upset Carmella? If anything, that person's probably like, oh my God, look, it worked. Oh my God, I got under her skin. Let me see who else I could destroy. Mentally give a little agita to. Just block these people, man. It took many years for me to do that. Many years. Like I had to see what every person was saying about me. Even when Kevin and I split early on, like I had to see what everybody was saying. And there was a lot of people throwing a lot of shit my way. And sometimes I would respond to everybody. And then got to a point, I'm like, you know what? These people do not help me in any way. And I just block them all. And even now, I've done a lot of growing up over the years and a lot of, learning. I'm not perfect and I'm still not perfect. But when people bring you down, man, especially when you're dealing with mental health stuff, Who gives a shit what they're saying? Just mute them, block them, and trust me, your wall will be a little boring. Your social presence might be a little boring, but your mind will be a hell of a lot clearer. Trust me, a hell of a lot clearer. Hell of a lot clearer. All right, let's go to wrestling. I just noticed my chat is frozen. Let me just reload my chat because I saw. Here we go. Okay. Let me just go from here to here. I don't know. Once in a while the chat freezes. I don't know why. All right. Tristan is saying, in my opinion, who is the craziest wrestler in the ring? Bruiser Brody, Abdullah the Butcher, or New Jack? Honestly, New Jack. Abby was crazy, man. But New Jack, the funny thing is, and I'm not saying this, again, not to, try to make myself look big, but New Jack, you either loved him or you hated him. And either he loved you or he hated you. And New Jack, I have been victim of both sides of that. New Jack was somebody, let me put it this way, Abby would not even, and the funny thing is, my first person I ever managed in wrestling was Abby for one night. You've seen that clusterfuck disaster. I actually brought Abdullah the Butcher out to beat the fuck out of Louis. Abby was a really nice guy, man. Abby, obviously, I met him in his 70s, 60s, whatever it was. So Abby was way past his prime, but Abby, it was an art form. See, the difference between Abby and New Jack is that Abby, it was an art form. New Jack, there was definitely art with it as well. When he smashed a vacuum cleaner in your nuts, he made sure that he wasn't going to literally break your nuts. I mean, he was very careful as well. You look at some of New Jack's matches, not just ECW, on the indie circuit, New Jack did look out for his opponents. The difference is, New Jack, if he didn't like you, he would fuck you up, man. He would, and listen, everybody remembers Mass Transit. Mass Transit was scary, scary shit. But, New Jack, he would really, really fucking lose it. Especially if somebody was in there and they were just trying to make a name for themselves or at his expense or was very reckless in the ring. New Jack would fucking lose it. He'd flip out. Abdullah the Butcher, his environment was a little bit different. So New Jack's not even close. Bruiser Brody was a crazy motherfucker. People legitimately were scared of Bruiser Brody in real life. Everybody remembers the infamous match with Lex Luger. But Bruiser Brody was scary. But I think as far as in-ring goes, New Jack was crazier. All right, that's 21. When did I know I was really ready to get married? Well, I was with my wife for 8 years. We're together, 9 years. We were together 8-9 years. I got engaged in 2020. So we started dating in 2012. We were together for about 8 years. So it was like, all right, I better put a ring on that. So, after 8 years, I realized, it's about time. That's really all it is. We're still together. This year will be our 3rd wedding anniversary, and this year we'll be together 13 years. We started dating 2 weeks before Sandy, Superstorm Sandy. That was a crazy time to get involved with someone. Yeah. All right. Tyrese, I'm getting to what you wrote. I didn't forget about you, my friend. We're going to segue into it. Benjamin's asking, is Triple H doing all these shocking title changes because of wrestling fans saying the championships only change hands for Big Four pay-per-views? I agree with partly of what you're saying. WWE, here's my take on this. And I've been a wrestling fan since 79. That doesn't give me stronger viewpoints than you. But I've seen everything. And in my honest opinion, the days of somebody being a champion for multiple years is no more. Unless they really have a difficult time trying to figure out how to take a belt off of someone. Roman Reigns with the bloodline, we need to remind ourselves that Roman Reigns becoming the legend that he is now happened during COVID. COVID is, I know this sounds ridiculous, but when you really think about it, it makes sense. Without COVID, Roman Reigns would have had a much harder path to get where he is now. Could they have still gone it? Absolutely. But with COVID, they can control the crowd chants when he's in Thunderdome. They can control the way that match happened in the cage with all the vocalness. You didn't have to deal with fans going, what? You know, and just totally trolling him, fans booing it. You know, just there was a lot that allowed them to direct it a certain way. Once they found it, Roman is like, I got this. And when we went back to live fans, Roman was able to fucking ace it. And the bloodline storyline became what it ended up becoming. I'm not saying that COVID was the only reason, but COVID definitely helped start it. Gave a nice little advantage in the beginning. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But at the same time, Vince McMahon was still in power. And when you got COVID and you have McMahon and you have, trying to create this, legendary run for today's generation, you got 2 years that go by, and you're still building a legacy. And they were going to take it off of him at 39, so we thought. No, we'll just wait another year. We'll just force it another year. That's why when you really think about it, could you imagine the irreversible damage that would have been done to Cody Rhodes and people don't remember week by week as this was going down. They were building Dusty all over again. If anybody tunes into Jim Cornette's podcast still now, even Jim Cornette talked about it with Cody's promo last week on SmackDown, not this past Friday, the Friday before. And Jim Cornette says Cody's got the cadence down, Dusty, the way he pauses and he emphasizes it. They were doing Dusty as a tribute for a year and a half. If you listen to what his promos, excuse me for a minute when I turn around and acknowledge this great live audience here. Byron, let's not talk in the back. Let's go in the audience so I could be with the people. On the house shows in Atlanta, wherever else, if I don't win this, I will never come back here ever again. I know that sounds a little ridiculous, but my point is, if you examine it week by week by week by week, they were building Dusty all over again. This generation's Dusty. And to take a year and 8 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and then flush it down the toilet because Dwayne Johnson became a part of the board of directors. No matter how unhinged you think Dwayne Johnson is, the man is a successful businessman, one of the biggest celebrities of this lifetime. The man is not this unhinged whack job that, the power is so through his head. It's like, okay, let's fuck what we've built over the last year and a half with Cody. Let's fuck the whole Dusty story. Let's fuck this, ruin that, turn this upside down just so I could win a match at WrestleMania and then I will surrender the belt and go back to Hollywood. Does anybody honestly think, anybody in the board of directors, I honestly think that Ryan Nemeth would probably be funnier than The Rock. If just let that sink in creatively and just imagine everything was being recorded for WrestleMania 40. Remember, behind the scenes, WrestleMania 40, the road to WrestleMania, everything was being recorded. Imagine if that truly was going to be the case. What story would that have told? That, oh my God, what the fuck did they do? They had this handed to them and they built this for a year and a half and they flushed it down the toilet. No, of course not. And where I'm getting at with this is now with TKO Group Holdings, now owning WWE, now with Endeavor and UFC, now this boxing company they're creating, everything is intertwined. Yes, TKO is its own stock. UFC is its own stock, but everything is under the same umbrella. And the thing is that they have to, it's like they're living for the moment. This idea that, oh, we'll build Gunther to be a 5-year champion, he'll be the most dominant, biggest performer of this generation. I'm just using Gunther as an example. Endeavor and TKO Group Holdings don't give a fuck about that. It's how could we maximize profits this month? Okay, how could we maximize profits next month? How do we maximize profits going into the summer? If you notice, they're now going overseas more and more and more, and they're going overseas on months. That back then it was, oh my God, they're doing LA Knight versus Logan Paul. Yay. Oh my God, they're doing Seth Rollins versus blah, 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 blah. Yay. You know, it's like the pay-per-views that seemed a little bit missable or passable or skippable. Now it's like, we can have pay-per-views like that. But we'll do it in Germany. We'll do it in Greece. We'll do it in Puerto Rico. We'll do it in other countries because they want live WWE so bad that we could fucking put Otis out there. And I'm not criticizing him, but I'm just saying that you look at when they go to some of these countries and you see right now overseas, they're doing Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley again for the whole circuit. And of course, you know, it's like, all right, you know, well, it's the road to WrestleMania and they're not going to do any title changes there. But when you really start examining it, like the fans are just loving it. Look at SmackDown Friday. Look at SmackDown Friday. That crowd was tremendous. But at the end of the day, this is a whole new WWE. It's about how can we stir things up this month? How can we stir things up next month? It's about just making moments and making more of them sooner. The reason why Cody Rhodes is still holding the championship is 2 reasons. Number one, Cody Rhodes is still the most over person in that company. Most over. It's mind-boggling how much merchandise this guy sells still. And because they take the title off of him too soon, then people will compare it to Roman Reigns. And they'll be like, wow, you know, Roman Reigns was all the way up here and Cody Rhodes, he couldn't even, he's kind of like Dusty. He couldn't hold the title. That's why they're doing that. Jey Uso, when he dethrones Gunther, it's for that moment to look back on when everybody's doing the Yeet thing. And then a couple of months after, people will be like, all right, well, that was nice. It's like Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Does anybody remember when Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens won the tag team titles off the Usos at WrestleMania? That was a magical moment. A month and a half later, they didn't know what the fuck to do with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. If you remember, they lost a couple of matches, non-title on TV. You know, having that moment is more important than everything else. Look at the Street Profits. I'm happy that they won the belts, but we've been joking around that they want to smoke every 3 weeks. You know, if you're going to do this angry, snarly attitude and trying to take everybody out, you don't do it every 3 weeks. You don't let up. But that's how WWE Creative did it. So, no, I don't think they're doing these title changes for anything more that now it's about how can we shake it up? How can we make another moment that everybody's talking about it? And this is what they're doing. You look at Lyra Valkyria. She became the first ever women's intercontinental champion, and it took 5 weeks before she defended her title even once. You look at Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green's doing an incredible job with her title because of her character. But it's like outside of Michin, They can't fucking figure out, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? You know, there's a lot of holes. And okay, let's do a title change. Why do you think Ray Phoenix is being teased for SmackDown? If you didn't tune into my news report yesterday, Ray Phoenix coming in is tremendous. But they're putting him on SmackDown because they don't want the Lucha Brothers together right now, because then everybody would be like, oh, the Lucha Brothers, they should beat the War Raiders, or they should beat DIY. Or, no, Street Profits are now the champions. Oh, we can't have the Lucha Brothers in the conversation, so we'll put them on separate brands. So they're doing things now about not shock TV, but they're doing things now just to get things buzzing. Io Sky, I have nothing against her. Kevin and I joke about Grumpy Cat, but Io Sky being the champion going into WrestleMania, does anybody truly think that's like really, really strong? She's there simply as a placeholder for Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. If you truly think that Io Sky, deserves to have that high-profile match at WrestleMania, then have the balls of just having Bianca versus Io one-on-one at WrestleMania. When you see them throw Rhea Ripley in that match, then you'll be like, I get it. We just wanted to spicing it up because Rhea gave Io that title shot. You should at least return the favor. That's the promo coming. So they're doing these changes because WWE now, it's kind of like what WCW wanted to do in 2000, but failed miserably. It's like, okay, how can we get people talking on TV? I get it. Let's do a title change. Problem is, they did 7 world title changes in like 2 weeks. I kid you not. At one point, I think they did like 7 world title changes in like 2 or 3 weeks. I might be off by 1 or 2 title changes, but they did that many. They thought just, shock TV. Oh my God, anything could happen on any episode. I must tune in. I must tune in. I must tune in. WWE's kind of doing that now, but they're doing it successfully. They're doing it successfully. So, speaking of SmackDown, Tyree says he was laughing his ass off watching SmackDown. Tiffany Stratton was on the Titantron. She jumped off, and everybody, including Charlotte, landed like dominoes. Yeah, I'm not a fan of those segments, because it looks so choreographed. Problem is, you can't do it a second time. You can't do it a second time. That's a spot where you can only do it once, and that's it. If you do it and it looks stupid, Tiffany's not going to say, oh, let me climb back to the top and do it again so it looks better. If it's not televised live, it's a house show, listen, back in the day, they would have house shows, or they would do a taping, and it would be so miserable on TV. This happened a few times in the past. How many of you remember these? They would do a SmackDown taping. Now, this was before it aired live in certain areas. They do a SmackDown taping, and the finish is kind of botched. And then they don't like the way it came off on TV. So the match ends, and then the wrestler turns around and gets on the mic and says, I challenge you, and they have an impromptu second match. That's happened in the past where the finish gets screwed up and WWE doesn't like the way it came off at all, and they can't figure out how to fix it. So what'll happen is the person in the ring will get on the mic. They'll tell him, challenge him to a rematch right now. And they'll set up a rematch and do the same finish again. And then they splice the two together, and that's how we see it on TV. That's happened a few times in the past. Spots like that, I don't like it. I mean, I personally used to love when wrestlers used to dive on top of me outside the ring. I remember, what the hell's his name? I can't remember his name. He used to hang out with Teddy Hart, and he also worked for Ring of Honor. Really, really skinny guy. I can't remember his name right now, but he used to say to me, he's like, man, I love diving on top of you, because for some reason, that was one thing that I learned in wrestling school that I used to do great. People would dive on top of me and I would fall back and it would be like a cushion. They'd be like, I feel like I landed on a pillow. Not Jack Evans. Fuck Jack Evans. I can't remember his name. His wrestling name was one word. Big shout out if anybody can remember. His wrestling name was one word. I can't remember his freaking name right now. It's on the tip of my tongue too. Really, really skinny, small guy. Suicide Kid is two names. It was one name. Delirious. I think it was Delirious. I think that's who it was. I think it was Delirious. He used to say to me, he's like, I love diving on top of you. It's like catching. I have footage of it too. So you didn't like it when Danny DeMonto would dive onto you, like 300 pounds. You know, that's a different story. But yeah, a move like that, Tyrese, you can only do it once on TV. And, you know, if it comes off caca, you know, that's why even, you know, when Io Sky would dive off the cage with the garbage pail and everybody's waiting, you know, for her to land on them. WWE's definitely done a better job with the camera work now. Much better job. But sometimes you get those moments that are a little bit ridiculous. So, King Hype. What's up, King? Two things, DT. Obafemi is the next big star, and I hope he comes to the main roster soon. He's a beast. Do I think that the TNA WWE deal, he's still in a result of WWE purchasing TNA as a whole? Do I think it could lead to WWE purchasing TNA? No, I don't think WWE is looking to purchase TNA. They have LFG, they have Evolve, they have NXT. TNA is kind of like a step. If we're really being honest, TNA is above NXT. You look at the wrestlers in TNA, many of them could go on Raw or SmackDown like that. You look at TNA is, you know, much higher in the food chain than NXT. The problem is it's a little bit too much for WWE. This is not like baseball where you have a single A team, a double A team, a triple A team, and then the major league team. I think WWE would have a very difficult time running TNA because, number one, that is a shitload of expense to have another touring group, another writing team, another TV show, another this, another that. And then if somebody catches real good fire in TNA, you're like, oh, let's bring him to Raw, let's bring him to SmackDown. I think it would be a fucking mess. That's why WCW never worked under WWE. When WCW closed down March 26, 2001, if you really look at that roster, they had a great fucking roster. They had a great roster. It was just the creative and the writing was ridiculously bad. That's why people, you know, that really follow AEW should take a page from WCW, whether you like it or not. WCW is a perfect example of having a really, really strong roster. And because of the people creatively running it, and yes, some wrestlers and their egos as well. If you don't keep everybody in check and have good writing and good, you know, a good grip on your roster, even the greatest actors could be in a bad movie. And that WCW is a great example of that. WCW's roster did not suck in 2000 and 2001. You read back that roster and you realize that wrestlers were not as old as you think that they were. You'd be like, holy shit, that's a pretty damn good roster. WWE purchases WCW and they tried to redo it with Shane McMahon and Stephanie running WCW and ECW, and it failed miserably. If anything, ECW side of it worked better in WWE because you could masquerade some people with hardcore matches. You could masquerade some of the wrestlers. WCW, it failed miserably. I don't think WWE would do a great job running TNA. No, I don't think it leads. The only reason why I see WWE buying TNA is if TNA was going out of business. I think if TNA was going out of business, I think WWE would buy the library. I think WWE would sign a bunch of people. I think they would release a bunch of people that are currently on the roster now. And I think TNA would just go away. I really do. I really do. Because you could bolster up NXT. You could bolster up Raw and SmackDown a little bit more. Get rid of some people that really are just filler. And this could be 2003 all over again. This could be 2003 all over again. Trust me, there's enough people in TNA, but I would not want to hurt anybody's feelings, that I would say half that roster, WWE would be like, really, how are they going to benefit? You know, I think no, I don't see them buying it at all. So, Don, just email me some concept artwork for a t-shirt that's Grand Theft Auto and WrestleMania 41 themed. Just a brainstorm. Let me know what you think. I will definitely check it out either tonight or tomorrow. Absolutely. And Don, I don't know if you were the one that did the artwork a couple of weeks ago, but I haven't had the chance to email the person back. I think it was you. Kevin and I want to pay you to alter Kev's look just a little bit. There is a little tattoo on his neck, 3 letters, and it's a tribute to his father who had passed away. Any artwork that we ever post, that's always there is a tribute to his dad. So I will definitely email you, because I'm sure, look, even what you did here, we definitely will reimburse you. But absolutely, man. Thank you. And Don says it was him. Let me tell you something, Don, for real. I showed Kev the artwork a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. There was 2 slight things that he just wanted changed on it. I'm going to email you, and like I said, we will definitely take care of you. Absolutely. But that artwork is tremendous. That is just amazing the way it looked. It's just, trust me, guys, I'm not just saying this to kiss Don's ass, but it was definitely, I mean, I saw it and I was like, whoa, this is some good shit, man. That is awesome stuff. Seriously. I mean, I got to reintroduce everyone, the Lex Luger graphic, him hitting me with the torture rack. I guarantee about 95% of you out there never saw it or don't remember it. We used to have a guy, his name is escaping me right now, and I kind of feel bad that it is, but he did a graphic of Lex Luger having me in the torture rack. And it's the funniest shit. And when I first saw it, I ripped him apart. I'm like, this is not fucking funny. And then after a while, I was like, oh my God, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. It is definitely, I got to show it to you guys next week. You absolutely will love it. But Don, that work was tremendous, man. We saw that and we were like, whoa, this is some next level shit. So next level. So thank you. I'll definitely reach out to you. Absolutely. Triple X. DT, much respect for addressing that random bipolar comment, addressing it not as a stigma, but instead as an understanding, experiencing, and caring person. Let me tell you something, Triple X. It took me 20 years, almost 20 years, to start letting go things about me that definitely was not helping me at all. Some people think I got soft because of it. You get older, you have life experiences, you see things in a different way. That's why I defend JD. You know, funny thing is 5-10 years from now, JD might be a totally different persona that he is. He you know, like he amps it up, obviously, and gets, you know, this is not how JD is in outside life. Me, outside of raising my voice, a lot of me, what you see here, is really a better reflection of me outside. You know, I just let go of a lot of things, and I realized that, hey, you know, you don't have to be perfect, and you can have faults. And sometimes, even if you dislike someone, you never know how much rock bottom they're at right now. And sometimes you got to just be the better person. And it's not even, I don't even consider like answering a random comment. It's that, you know, listen, everybody deals with, you know, problems, and, you know, sometimes even if you don't understand it, sometimes you got to just take a step back and respect it. And you'd be like, okay, you know, sometimes you got to just try to understand what that person is going through. I'm not, you know, anything special here, but I've come to, you know, let things go a little bit. I was definitely not the easiest person to deal with. Now I'm just laid back. I'm like, whatever, whatever. That's why even when I see people fighting on social media and having these wars, I'm like, keep me out of it. I have no interest in being a part of it. And trust me, sometimes people like try to pull me in and I'm like, nah. And that's not easy to do because sometimes your friends may take it the wrong way. Sometimes your friends are like, how come you weren't there for me? How come you didn't stick up for me? How come you didn't do this? How come you didn't? And sometimes I think they realize after, you're a big boy, there's a saying, if you play, you must pay. If you play, you must pay. If you can give it, you better be able to take it. And sometimes, people aren't abandoning you, but just showing loyalty just for the sake of showing loyalty doesn't necessarily help the person. If you listen to what I said yesterday about Nikki Bella, listen to what I said yesterday about Nikki Bella. Kevin and I are going to talk about it tomorrow. Nikki Bella, when she went on a podcast with Brie Bella a couple of days ago, she had this bizarre rant about a movie she saw. And I still got to check and see if she ever named the movie. I don't think she did name the movie. And I think the name of the movie is It Doesn't Exist, Part 3. At the end of it, it was like, wow, it hit me so hard because it shows you can be a world champion at any age. And as I read the comments, I'm saying, oh my God, Nikki Bella actually thinks that she one day is going to return to WWE and win the championship again. Does she understand that, number one, she was never really good wrestling-wise, and number two, the women today, it's not even close. And you're not going to demote people just to give that moment to her. And I'm not trying to be cold. But you know what the problem is? You're going to have 5,000 people on social media telling Nikki, you go, girl. You go. You could still do it. You still got it. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous to put that thought in her head that she could still grab it. And then when it doesn't happen, there's a lot of bitterness. And then you realize that the people that were really propping you up, they were propping you up because they like you, but they weren't giving you truth medicine. So again, I'm not trying to be like a dick to Nikki Bella, but who in their right mind would give her a belt right now, or even 6 months from now, when you see what's on the horizon in the women's division? For nostalgic purposes? Why? Again, it's not trying to be cruel, but problem is, the Bella Army, you go, girl. You still got it. Girl, you look better than half the fucking roster. What you've done, you earned it. You deserve it. And that goes to your head. And then she starts believing that. And then when it doesn't happen, WWE's evil. That's why Carmella, fact of the matter is, she was there for 12 years. Her character is played. They can't figure out a new character to give her. She's 37. She hasn't wrestled in 3 years for the most part. And Endeavor and TKO is looking at their payroll like, why are we paying this person? Wait, she's been here since we bought the company and she hasn't worked? Oh, well, she wants to do interview segments. Yeah, but we have Kathy Kelly, Jackie Redmond. And why do we need her? Oh, she's been with the company for 12 years. Yeah. I mean, what do you expect them to say? And she thinks that she's being age discriminated. No, but you see what I mean? Like people have gotten in their head that it's for a totally different reason. Carmella needs to look in the mirror and say, WWE passed me by. It's my time to move on. Instead of building this, spilled milk. Oh, we got to talk about Miro CJ Perry. That would be a good segue. Before I do that, let me just give a couple other shout outs. Zim Pulse. DT loved the shows, in my opinion. Who's the more talented, Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins? Wrestling wise, Seth Rollins is not even close. Roman Reigns is more of an entertainer. Seth Rollins is an entertainer, but also very crafty in the ring. Definitely much better wrestler in the ring. But again, not everybody is designed to be a 5-star wrestler, doing moves. Some of the greatest wrestlers of my lifetime were not spectacular in the ring. Say what you want about Hulk Hogan, but nobody wanted to see Hulk Hogan wrestling Japanese style in the WWF on American soil. They wanted to see Hulk up. They wanted to see power moves. They wanted to see him do the leg drop. They wanted to see that shit. They didn't want to see drop kicks and arm drag takedowns and this and that and the shit that he did in Japan. It was a nice change of pace. But no, even John Cena, whether you liked him or you didn't, he became one of the most over people because of his character more than anything else. John Cena did not need to do what he did. When he became the United States champion, John Cena showed that he actually can do a lot more in the ring and did. And it earned the respect of a lot of people that he didn't have before. So it's Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are two totally different styles. I think that's the way to put it. So thank you for that. Kevin Milwaukee, Fletcher, Buddy Matthews, Harley Cameron. Has ever been this much influx of Australian talent in wrestling at once before? Might as well call it AEW Vegemite. At the end of the day, it's still only 3 people. I personally, whether it's, 3 that come from Japan, 3 that come from China, Korea, Australia, Germany, it just so happens that, we have 3 in AEW right now from Australia. Listen, I like Kyle Fletcher. I just feel that you can't force him to be like a future main eventer. Just like they have Mark Davis. Like I saw he was in a 4-way on Wednesday. I'm like, whatever. Like you may have visions of grandeur of certain people. That doesn't mean that you could force the issue. It doesn't mean it'll ever work. Harley Cameron definitely has a future. The only thing is you can't convince people now that she is ready to take it to the next level, but she's definitely got something. Buddy Matthews is great. I agree with what Jim Cornette says. Tremendous wrestler, horrible name, Buddy. I always think of that De La Soul song. Is that My Buddy? My Buddy? I always thought that song meant it wasn't it about your penis? My buddy does this. My buddy does that. I always thought it was about that. My buddy. Is that De La Soul? No, maybe it's not. Someone in the chat room will correct me. So, thank you for that, Kevin. Oh, yeah. DeMarcus says yes. De La Soul. Isn't that song, My Buddy, about a penis? Maybe I'm wrong, but I always thought it just, when you listen to the song, it's, I'm telling you, that is a great fucking song. Even if any of you out there are young, that weren't into classic hip hop, go on YouTube later on. Just search My Buddy by De La Soul. Watch the music video. The music video is even better. I used to be into classic hip hop. Huge. Can I explain the white label records I collect? I don't have any handy that I could show you, but I still have a box of about 100 to 150 records. They're white labels, and I have no idea what's on. Here's a little grown-up Don Tony for people interested. I used to DJ. Not for clubs, but I used to do high school dances. I DJ'd a bowling alley a couple of times with my friend Joey. I mixed tapes at home. A lot of you, I don't think I have this picture in my computer anymore over here. Do I? I don't believe I do. I don't. A lot of you have seen the picture of me mixing 2 turntables, wearing my Puma shirt from 1984. I used to mix. And at the time, a lot of DJs that would make master mixes, they would do mashups. That's what it's called these days. They would put their mixes on records. And what they would do is they would get 50, 100 of these records printed up. And they would go to a DJ, a record store, and say, hey, can I sell my records here? And what happens is that because it wasn't a professional record label, you just, listen, I made a mix. A lot of you have heard it before. Back in the day, I mashed up Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight and Biz Marquis's Make the Music with Your Mouth. Everybody remember that song with Biz Marquis? I mixed the two together, and it sounds amazing. When it gets to the beginning of Phil Collins, and then all of a sudden you hear Biz Marquis kick in, and people are like, holy shit. I actually put it on a record and tried to sell like 50 copies of it. I think I sold 10 and I gave the rest away. But what would happen back in the day is people would make their own music, whether a drum machine or mixing songs together, and they didn't have a record label company. They couldn't put it on a label because they would get sued for using other people's music. So what they would do is they would go to a record pressing company and pay X amount of dollars. Back in the day, I think I spent like $2 a record, and you would press 50 or 100 because that would be the minimum order. And then what would happen is your record would have a white label on it with nothing written on it. And then some people would put their DJ name on it. Some people would put a logo, usually handwritten, and they would bring it to like a local DJ store. And for my friends, the DiLorenzos used to have a record company called Twice as Good. And they used to have a record store on Myrtle Avenue. If anybody wants to do a little Google history search, not open anymore. And what happened is DJs in the neighborhood would be like, hey, could you sell these? And you say, no problem. And you would walk into a record store and there'd be a section called White Label. And you open it and you don't know what's on it. Sometimes you saw Mixmaster Mike. Mixmaster Mike. I have a mix from 1982 that a friend of mine made that I have on cassette still. It's amazing because it's got LL Cool J, some bootlegged rap that he did, mixed in with Scarface. And you hear like echoing where Tony Montana says, you want to fuck with me? Fuck with me? Fuck with me? Fuck. It's just, and it's mixed with Led Zeppelin too. And it's like, in 1982, you think to yourself, how do you even think of stuff like this? So what would happen is people would bring in their white labels and you'd walk in the store and it'd be like white labels, $5 each. And you would grab 10. And sometimes they would have different numbers on it. So you didn't happen to buy 10 of the same thing. Because the last thing you wanted to do is go home, put them on a record player, and then realize I bought 4 of the same thing. So that's what white labels were. White labels were records that most of the time you had no idea what was on them. And you bring them home. Sometimes, I kid you not, one time I bought a white label for like $5. I put on a record player and on my turntable, and it was like a mega mix of Culture Club. The fuck wants to hear Culture Club? Like, I'll tumble for you. I'll tumble for you. I'm like, oh no, and threw it away. So I have about 100 white labels still in the box that I never played yet. I have no idea what's on them. One day when I set it up, I will connect the turntable, hook it up to the computer, and put the mixes on there. But that's what white labels were. When DJs tried to sell their music, but, unfortunately didn't have a professional label, was worried about getting sued. So they would just put their logo or something on the white label, and they would sell it randomly in stores. And that was it. If you sold them all, then you would just press more. That is true. That is true. Actually, believe it or not, one time on Discord a couple of years ago, I was going to stream video live. Can't record it. Can't stream it on YouTube. I'll get hit with copyrights like crazy. But I was going to pull a whole bunch of white labels out and play them live. And everybody was going to just hang out and tune in and see what was on them. But it's just a big process. My turntable is not hooked up. The records are in a box. But believe it or not, inside, I have the box. Next week, I promise you, you have my word. It's literally in my living room, stored underneath the cabinet. Next week, I will bring some of them in here. I'll bring the box in here, and I'll show you what the white labels look like. So, thank you, Rob. Julius Tillery, what are my overall thoughts on heavy metal and hard rock music? I've been into club music, disco, hip-hop, house music, techno, hip house, my entire life. But I absolutely have a spot for classic rock. The first ever cassette tape that I ever bought in my lifetime was a double album of, don't ask me why, of a group called Yes. Now, most people that hear the group Yes will think of a song from, I think, 1983 called Owner of a Lonely Heart. But the first cassette, I think the reason why I bought it is because my friend bought it, so I bought it too. It was a double cassette called of Fragile and Close to the Edge, which is kind of interesting after the discussion that we had tonight. The first side of the cassette was Fragile, the album, and the opposite side was Close to the Edge. And that was the first cassette that I ever remember buying. But I was tremendous into Pink Floyd, loved Led Zeppelin, was a maniac obsessed with Jimi Hendrix. Even in the 80s, thanks to music videos, Quiet Riot, my God, oh shit. I'm trying to think of the other group, Twisted Sister. Holy shit. I mean, Def Leppard was into all of them. And then later on, I was into U2 big time. So I had definitely a spot for rock music. And, you know, I still have my music collection and I have all their tunes. Twisted Sister was interesting because of the music videos. That's the only reason why I got into Twisted Sister. Because the guy from Animal House, remember he was the teacher? Is that a Twisted Sister pin on your uniform? What do you want to do with your life? I think we used that as an intro on a DTKC Show episode several years ago. I remember we did. In fact, I think somebody said something on TV in a WWE promo that sounded like I Want to Rock. And it sounded just the same thing. And I think we kind of spoofed it. But I definitely have a soft spot for classic rock. Absolutely, man. I still remember, and I've told this story many times in the past, for my senior prom. For my senior prom in high school, I did not go. Instead, me and my friends, we showed up. This is a true story. This was 1987. We showed up at the Waldorf Astoria in a limousine. And we said, this is a God honest true story. Like, you couldn't make this up. And trust me, if I were going to make this up, I would make it more dramatic. On our senior prom, none of us had dates. So we showed up at the Waldorf Astoria where everybody was there. And we opened the sunroof and we started playing Sharp Dressed Man by ZZ Top. And we opened up the sunroof and we were drinking champagne in front of everybody. Teachers, people walking in for the dance. And then we left and we went to Dangerfield's in New York City, Rodney Dangerfield's Comedy Club. After Dangerfield's, we were still, you know, we had the limo for the whole night. We had the limo driver who was the coolest motherfucker, drove us to Rockaway Beach and we were drunk. Some of my friends were stoned. It was about 6 or 7 of us. And we were watching, I don't know if it was Stairway to Heaven or The Song Remains. I can't remember what the Led Zeppelin, like they had a video that was like kind of like their songs. And we were watching it on the VCR in the limo and it was sunrise. And we literally were sitting by the beach, just chilling, hanging out. I know we were I was smoking cigarettes at the time and we just, to sunrise, watching Led Zeppelin. That is true story. True story. DeMarcus, oh man, you're already a member of the Donzel Army and the Castle Comrades for 11 months. He had thought that part of Triple H's Hall of Fame induction is to announce a physical location. Vegas seems like the ideal place to put it. I don't like Vegas. Because you know what it is? Vegas is an interesting place because usually when people go, they go because of gambling. Like Vegas is not like a destination that people would frequent multiple, unless they're going to gamble. Some people, they get a little suki. I always thought like Florida or New York City would be more of an ideal spot. The problem is New York City's too expensive now. I personally think WWE, unless it's overseas, I think WWE would always have the rolling. Like wherever WrestleMania is going to be, or maybe SummerSlam, like they bring this mini Hall of Fame, display with them. I don't think it would be popular enough. Listen, I drive my wife to work every day, and morning is a different story, but in the afternoon when I go to pick her up, I look at all of the stores on the strip where she works, and there's like very, very few people walking around. And it's not because it's a bad neighborhood. It's because people don't walk around like they used to. So I think it has to be at a travel, almost like near Orlando, Disney, Universal Studios, like something where there's people always around. Vegas, there's people always around too, but I don't know how many people in Vegas would want to stop to look at Hulk Hogan's boots or Andre the Giant's boots. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it would be anywhere near as popular. Even like Major League Baseball with their Hall of Fame, they have it, upstate New York, Cooperstown. And that is not an area that is really widely visited, outside of when it's Hall of Fame season. So I don't think WWE would do it in Vegas because I don't think it would be very popular unless they own the building. Unless they own the building that they can just showcase it. They don't have to pay rent. But I just always felt that near a travel destination, I always thought Orlando would be a more suitable place. All right, we're going to start bringing this home soon because we're almost at 2 hours. I can start feeling it's starting to hit me here. I got to share something with you. All right. There's a reason for this thumbnail today. And this is a lot to digest. Conning Con. Dave Meltzer put something out. By the way, Tristan X, what's my favorite soda? One of my favorite sodas of all time, which people think suck, is Manhattan Special coffee soda. I have this weird memory of working for my dad's store in the middle 80s, eating a giant ham and cheese hero and drinking Manhattan Specials. Right now, my favorite soda is Coke Zero. So getting back to Conning Con, Dave Meltzer puts out a story. We talked about it briefly yesterday. And even though it doesn't sound like a lot, when you get like 5 DMs and emails within a few hours of doing a report, that's a lot. Over a week, it's much more. But when you get quick reactions like that, yesterday was either Lillian Garcia, love, or this. When I started looking into it a little bit further, it's pretty fucking funny. And the thing is, I have said this many times. I'm not even, listen, I don't talk to Miro. He doesn't know I exist. So there's no reason for me to prop him up like this. I think Miro is by far, him and CJ Perry are the most intelligent, successful businessmen and women to ever have been employed in AEW. Because the amount of money that they made for doing as little as they did is comical. It's comical. Miro was brought in, and their idea is doing video games and hanging out with Kip Sabian. And then, next thing you know, like we thought this guy was going to become world fucking champion. And the next thing you know, a year goes by. And then nothing, almost nothing. And then you realize, okay, this is how AEW operates. And then you understand there's a lot of wrestlers from Wardlow to Hobbs. And, you go down the list, Ricky Starks and others that, you're only going to go so far, but you're never going to break over that top. Very, very rare to see Swerve Strickland get in the position that he's in. That is very, very rare. And that's a good thing, but it's very rare. So when you realize the amount of money that they got from Tony Khan for doing next to nothing. And listen, say what you want about Ray Phoenix. All right, but Ray Phoenix, these guys sign a contract. And they know damn well that if they sign a 4-year deal, this is not AEW of 2021. This is not a case where you don't know the pattern of AEW. So when people sign in 2022 and 2023 and 2024, they re-sign for a couple of more years. Because remember, Lucha Bros signed in 2020, I think it was, or 2019. And they re-signed a couple of years later. So they knew damn well that they could run into a situation where they're not going to be used and they're going to be skipped over. And the thing is that Ray Phoenix, I want out. Take note that Ray Phoenix never wanted out until he had to live out his injury time. Nobody ever thought about that. Like when Ray Phoenix was out with injury, but still under normal contract, you heard no complaints, no nothing. But once his contract was coming up to be terminated, to be expired, I should say, and then he owed this injury time. Oh, I want to wrestle. I don't want to sit at home and just cut the grass. I don't want to sit at home and watch everybody else work. I love wrestling. I miss wrestling. I want to do it. I want to just do me something. And then he puts the fucking picture out where he's got get the fuck out of here. He didn't like the fact that, you had to owe some money. It's kind of like a credit card. You use the credit card, you charge it, you buy things. Oh, this is great. Then all of a sudden the credit limit is gone and you can't charge anymore. Now you got to start paying it back. Oh, I want to wrestle. I want to leave. I'm not happy. I don't want to be in a place where I'm not liked. It's because your credit card was maxed and you can't charge anymore. And you didn't want to pay the money back. That's what happened to Ray Phoenix. So, but with Miro's like, I'm redeeming checks. The redeemer. He's redeeming the amount of money. This guy could have bought a car every fucking week. Not, BMW, but could have bought a car every week that he sat at home and got a paycheck and didn't work. The redeemer. He just made money. So now they bring in CJ Perry, his fucking wife. Now they're both double dipping. So I call Meltzer's story bullshit. I think in the very near future, Miro, CJ Perry, or a combination thereof, will go on Chris Van Vliet, and we will find out if it's true or it's not. My gut feeling tells me that Dave Meltzer is really playing like a wild guessing game right now. But if it's true, Miro and CJ Perry almost conned. Wait. Sorry. Let's bring that back. Okay. Miro and CJ Perry almost conned Khan into another fucking cash grab. It came this close of conning Khan once again. Now, this is based on what Dave Meltzer is reporting. For those that don't know what I'm talking about. Now, I don't have the specific dates in front of me. I go based on my mind, my memory. But I know that I'm pretty spot on with this. If you remember last year, CJ Perry and Miro split. They were separated. They were going to be getting divorced. But they were remaining friends. And one day, maybe they'll work together again. So now, CJ Perry leaves AEW last year. We thought it was June, but actually it was April. And then Miro is let out of his contract February, last month. So that happens. So now Dave Meltzer finds out through TMZ and other areas that Miro and CJ Perry are back together. And not only are they back together, but they're renewing their vows because they love each other. They want to renew their vows. So Dave Meltzer goes in his newsletter and says that Miro and CJ Perry lied about their separation, that got TMZ to play along with it. And the reason why they did that was to build a storyline in AEW. And basically what Dave Meltzer claims is that Miro went to Tony Khan and said, look, we're going to go on TMZ and announce that we're separating. And that will put a lot more legitimacy in our feud in AEW. And we could have this go full blown, that we're divorcing and CJ Perry will get all these people after me and vice versa. We could turn this to major storyline. That's what Dave Meltzer is reporting. And Tony Khan was like, nah, I don't like it. So he decided to not only not do it, but not use them for the rest of the year. So Dave Meltzer is basically calling bullshit on this. Well, here's the problem. And again, Dave Meltzer didn't do the research, but I did. Let's look at the timeline. Miro and CJ Perry announced their divorce, their separation, around March of 2024. March 2024. If you go, actually March, April 2024. If you go back, AEW had let CJ Perry go right around the same time. So now you say to yourself, okay, something doesn't make sense here. Why would AEW let CJ Perry go and at the same time Miro and CJ Perry make an announcement through TMZ that they have separated and then keep separated until March of 2025? Why would you go almost an entire year of making everybody believe you're separated if CJ Perry was already out of the company for almost a year? Why would you do that? Here's another thing. The last time we saw CJ Perry and Miro on AEW television, if you remember, Miro took on Andrade, who was managed by CJ Perry. If you remember that match, Andrade had a submission move on Miro, and CJ Perry knocked Andrade's arms from underneath him, and she turned on Andrade. So Miro they have the match, and we're left that CJ Perry just turned on Andrade and helped Miro. So now, why would you, after CJ Perry just helped Miro, why would you 3 months later say, we're going to tell TMZ, we're going to separate, say we're going to file for divorce, and we could turn this into a major storyline where the last time that we saw them on TV, CJ Perry helped Miro? Makes no sense, does it? So I think Dave Meltzer forgot that CJ Perry helped Miro the last time they did this. But if Dave Meltzer is correct, let this sink in. CJ Perry is already gone from AEW. And now the entire world thinks that CJ Perry and Miro have separated, and Miro is going back to Bulgaria, and they pitched to Tony Khan, oh, let's turn this into a major storyline. Everybody thinks we're separated. Imagine if Tony Khan would have said, you know what, that's a great idea. Yes, yeah. That means he would have had to rehire CJ Perry to another contract. And if that's the case, Miro and CJ Perry came this fucking close of triple dipping Khan and Khan. So you go on Dave Meltzer's logic, they split up through TMZ to try to convince Tony Khan to bring back CJ Perry and pay her for another year and turn this into a major storyline. They came this close of getting another mega payday, and Tony Khan didn't bite. He didn't take the bait. And I look back on it, I'm like, these two are fucking smart. And then, a year later, now they've gone out of AEW, and then it's like, oh, let's get back together. I honestly don't think for AEW standards, they would have gone that extra mile. Plus, if CJ Perry is not on TV anymore and not being used, why would you give the entire world the perception that you're splitting up just to try to get a money grab from Tony Khan? The minute you realize Tony Khan is not going for it, then you get back together. It's just, it's a little too bizarre. Plus, TMZ, listen, I don't let TMZ get by with anything. So TMZ going along with it, I think that hurts TMZ a little bit. Imagine that TMZ is now putting up bullshit stories, knowing that they're bullshit and going with it anyway because they're in on it. Why does TMZ care about CJ Perry and Miro that much that they're going to put their credibility on the line? So I think it's a little bit ridiculous on Dave Meltzer's part. My God, I have to admit there's a part of me that absolutely would love to find out that they tried to con one extra time. I have nothing but love for them, man. So they are back together. They are back together, and they renewed their vows. And I think in the very near future, like I said, I think Chris Van Vliet will interview one or both of them, and we will find out the truth. Personally, I don't think they would ever go public and say, yeah, we did a publicity stunt just to try to get another payday from Tony Khan. I think the fact that they let Miro out of his contract early makes me wonder if Miro had to sign an NDA. I don't think we'll ever know the truth. But man, if it ended up, this is a case where I would love for Dave Meltzer to be right. This is a case I would love it, because right now, if I'm anybody in wrestling that has any type of, exposure or play, no matter how low I am on the food chain, I would do whatever I can to get a payday from Tony Khan. That's why I think some of what Carmella did, the accusation of WWE is to kind of get Tony Khan thinking, hey, maybe we could bring her in and do something with her, and we'll treat her right. We'll right the wrong that WWE. We don't want her to exit WWE. We'll do the right thing for Leah Vendale. I get that feeling that Carmella, a little subliminal message like, Tony, do the right thing. Bring me in. I still have something to offer, and I know you'll treat me better than WWE did. Ooh, trust me. You feed that ego with Tony Khan, he thinks he's saving the world. He thinks he's getting the Nobel Peace Prize. I wouldn't even give him a Cracker Jack surprise. He actually thinks that. So that's why whenever we show like graphics, like I said at the beginning, we'll always show them with a baby pacifier or a baby bottle or, a little shirt that says Shad Khan's kid. All right. I think we're going to jet. We've overstayed our welcome. I'm just very glad that I didn't lose the rest of my voice. So I'm going to jet out of here. So just a reminder one last time, guys, 8 p.m. Eastern, Kevin and I will be live Monday night for the Don, Tony, and Kevin Katzel show in our Discord channel. Again, 8 p.m. because of Raw airing so early in the day. Once again, Raw is on at 3 p.m. Eastern. That's when Raw will be live, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I will be watching it at 3 o'clock. And I will definitely be taking notes. And we have a few things we're going to get into. So it's going to feel a little different doing the show at 8 o'clock. And that might be the norm for the next 3 weeks. But it'll be nice on a Monday night to finish at a halfway decent hour. And I'm going to go rest my voice because you could hear it's this close to going. But I want to thank you very, very much for joining me tonight. Tonight's show, the first half was definitely a much different tone than what we normally do. But, again, that's one of the things I think that separates what we do compared to anybody else out there. There's not many other shows that you can tune in and really have, there is something I got to mention. And I am sincerely apologetic for not saying this at the beginning of the show. I will mention it in the synopsis so this person knows. Dayhawk, 666, he won the Elimination Chamber Predictions Contest. We announced the winner on Patreon Tuesday. I forgot Dayhawk won it. So Dayhawk, if you see this, reach out to me so I could hook you up with your prize. He won the contest on YouTube. So much love to him. And Jimmy Fingers, thank you very much. Kev is doing okay. He is very, very tired. He is a little bit stressed. I will tell you that it's a combination of medicine, just really kicking his ass, his body getting used to it. But it's also him resisting, working too hard. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but he finds himself in spots where, he's just his entire life has been that mode, and he's got to force himself to pull back a little bit. But I will tell you this, and I'm not just saying this. He specifically told me tonight through some DMs that doing the shows right now, he's got to be careful how long he does them. He says, but doing the shows right now has been like the most enjoyable part of what he's going through. It's an escape, and he loves the interaction, loves all the response. And, he's very, very thankful for that. So I'm glad that he's getting through this, but it is not smooth sailing. And, for me, that's why on Mondays, we haven't been putting synopsises up because, it's more of a discussion wherever the discussions lead. And everybody seems to be loving it because it's almost like a surprise. It's like potluck. They don't know what conversation they're getting. And then we get a response back like, wow, that was great. But Mondays, we're keeping it much simpler. And on his Patreon show Thursdays, I've been, sending him the questions in a way that it's very, organized and condensed. So it's easy reading and, no research required. And, we're having fun, and we're on the road to WrestleMania. So the road to WrestleMania, that in itself, just really puts everybody in a different mode. But, we'll definitely have a fun show tomorrow. I hope everybody could join us live. And, that's pretty much it. So, my friends, I'm going to jet out of here. I want to thank you all once again for joining me. And we'll be live again next Sunday night, 8:05 p.m. for the sit-down. Let me shut this thumbnail down. And I bid you farewell for this evening. So be well, everybody. And I'll catch you all again on the next one. Ciao.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.
I found the picture. That is vintage Don Tony from 1984 with my Puma shirt on, mixing turntables, mixing up the records. Yeah, we didn't. I like my curtains and my encyclopedia set and rosary beads. See, look, I got rosary beads. I got encyclopedias. I got brown curtains. Everything was brown at that time. Brown. Look at my hair. Look at my freaking hair. Where did it all go? Where did it all go?